Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Hudson.
Good evening, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Welcome all to our final part 7 of Alan Hudson's World Cup Diary. And while Argentina are returning to Buenos Aires with the World Cup, the Golden Glove, the Young Player and the Golden Ball, we did leave empty-handed, Al, because we've got the Fair Play Trophy and Dave the Cat. Well done, Southgate. Brilliant.
Well, that's the fair price. I say fair play to them. Basically. No, I mean, as I sent you an email earlier on, and on it said, football's a funny old game. Especially the knockout competitions and that,
Yeah.
and you sometimes in domestic football, you look at things and you get knocked out along the way and you wonder, then you see a team go on to do a lot better. They're inferior teams or whatever. But Saudi Arabia must have thought, we could have been in the final. We beat Argentina and we done great against them. I mean, France for 80 minutes were awful.
Yeah.
They were, like England and in the Euros with Italy, Italy were hopeless, and yet they still couldn't beat them. And France were there for the taking if England had been good enough, but basically, Paul, they're just not good enough.
No.
All this hype on TV, you listen to these people, Ian Wright, Alan Shearer, they're all jump on the England bandwagon every 4 years, and it drives me mad. Why don't they just be honest and tell it the way we see it? The whole country knows. We go down a pub and we speak to our mates and say it's just not good enough. Simple as that.
But we can be good enough, Al, if we played our most creative players and put them players on the pitch. But he's took now to 3 tournaments, a group of gifted players, because England, no matter really whether we're good, bad or indifferent, we should always be competitive, certainly in the Euros, and then, yeah, for sure in the World Cup as well. But when it's come to the crunch, when Southgate has come to a game that you would expect there's a little bit of jeopardy on, this could go either way. It has gone either way and not our way. He's failed 3 times now, and also was given an extension before the World Cup, and he's activated it because he's now turned round and said, I'm staying on to the Euro, so we've got 2 more years of this rubbish.
Well, it's as I always say, it's we never take any, we never look back in history, and we learn. We should learn from history, but we don't. Everyone raves about. They're still cooing over 1966, and I remember around the time I was in the squad in '70, and they're all going mad about. But Alf was the same. Alf Ramsey was the same. It wasn't picking your best team and winning the tournament. You had Jim McGreeves on the sideline. We had people like Peter Thompson, and one of the best wingers in the world. We had better players on the bench then than what we did when we won it, and we won it really. Who's to say? Would we have beat Argentina if they hadn't have gone down to 10 men? Ratting got sent off. So many ifs and buts. Unlike this World Cup, where it was so dubious, so many dubious decisions, bad defending, awful. 10 minutes ago, that Otamendi, whatever his name, he makes a tackle like the Frenchman did on the English fella, to get the penalty. It's just the players. The standard of defending in modern day football, Paul, is atrocious. They just don't know how to defend.
Do you think
they think like Pep Guardiola? Everyone's got to be a footballer. Even goalkeepers are trying to play football now. And it rubs off. And they think because they're good players, they don't there's an art to defending, and these players, the modern day players, just don't know how to tackle.
And that's what I was going to say to you. Do you think it's a fact that you get these academies, England are trying to play out from the back, the goalkeepers have got to be a footballer? Well, you're a goalkeeper for a damn good reason. You're not a footballer. And these days, all the defenders, they want comfortable on the ball, comfortable. Now, I want a goalkeeper goalkeeper to be able to be useful with his hands, stop shots coming out. I want defenders that are able to defend, and then when you've got the ball, give it to someone that can actually play football. But I think you're right there, Al. It's been that over the years, let's play football, and the art of defending has diminished.
Well, yeah, I mean, great example about what you just mentioned is the best goalkeeper in the competition. The Villa
Yeah,
goalkeeper. He was phenomenal.
yeah,
There's no doubt. But he's been phenomenal for all the time with Villa. He's been absolutely out this world every time I've seen him at Villa. When they were having a good run under the other manager,
mm,
he's terrific goalkeeper, and he concentrates on. He made a hash last night when he come out and tried to volley one. But I think that was more in the heat at a moment and the start, the magnitude of the game. When he come out, he tried to clear it and he missed it, and he was very fortunate he didn't drop to someone. And like the Morocco game when he scored the first goal, the goalkeeper made a hash, come up his line, and
yeah,
the fella chipped it over his head. But it's common. It basically all boils down to common sense. But when I think the most amazing thing about the World Cup is, I remember the first game when Saudi in the second half against Argentina. Argentina should have been 5-0 up at half
yeah,
time and they lost 2-1. They were erratic. Argentina were erratic. They played like second half. They played like a Sunday pub team,
mm,
and I thought there's no way. They were betting in my local pub whether they go through or not get through the group. How they got through the group, and it was only got through the group because of Messi.
yeah.
He come up the first one against Mexico from just outside the box. If that had been 0-0, they were in big trouble. Um, you know, so it was an incredible World Cup for that alone. Um, and they mentioned it last night. Who would have said after the first game that they would be in the final? But then not only were they in the final, but they had total control for 80 minutes. It was just horrendous. And my poor friend who had a massive bet on it, I'm thinking about going to the fridge and getting a bottle of champagne out and celebrating for him. And then all of a sudden he makes a horrendous tackle and it's 2-1. And who picks the ball up but Mbappe? I mean, God Almighty! It was a moment I went, oh no, I can't
Mm,
tell you what I said
yeah,
on
yeah,
air, but it was terrible. But for 80 minutes it was 2-1 side. It was no way the best World Cup of all time, not at all, because for 80 minutes 2-1 sided. But from then on, it was like, as I wrote today, it was like a scene from Ben Hur when the old chariot race. It was unbelievable. Bodies everywhere. It was great. It was great. It was great. It was great television for someone. If someone watched it last night and never seen football before, they would have loved it. But the only thing that would have messed it up for them, they wouldn't have been able to go to football again because not many games are like that.
no, absolutely. Let's look at the final. Um, Benzema, it looks as though he got the ump by not being involved in the World Cup because he was injured and they sent him home. And then apparently he's fit and he, by all accounts, wanted to go back to Qatar. But Deschamps didn't want him. There seems to be an undercurrent there with Mbappe with Benzema and Deschamps because it appears as though he's now retired from international football. But I do believe he's 35, and when you're looking at the next tournament, he's got to be 37. Is it the right time for him to say, do you know what? It is now. We've come so close, and I've had my time. I'm retiring from international football.
Having said that, how old's Giroud?
I think he could be another one, but I do think that Giroud seems to be a Didier Deschamps kind of player, where I think that Benzema might not be, and I think if Deschamps does stay, I think that Giroud will stay. But if Deschamps
Well,
decides to call it a day, perhaps he'll retire as well.
yeah, but what I'm saying is you're saying exactly the same as what back in the thing with Southgate is he's got his type of players, and
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the other fella, Benzema, he's just an incredible player.
Yeah, he is.
You wouldn't. There's not an argument who could be playing in the
Mm,
French team out of them two.
yeah.
It just, had he played, they wouldn't have played that bad last night if he was playing up front. He would have
Yeah.
rocked them.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
it's just that Giroud. I really do believe the older I get, the more and it happens. It's like Argentina winning it for Lionel. I think it really is written in the stars. I
Mm,
really believe that. When Chelsea won a cup in '70, our name was all over it.
yeah.
It wasn't. We got the best draw all along the way, right until we got to Leeds in the final, and we were still second best and won it.
Yeah.
So it is knockout competitions can be like that.
Absolutely. But there are going to be a number of players, now looking at the next tournament, because it was almost like the Dad's Army World Cup, wasn't it? We got a lot of star players that are in the mid 30s or late 30s that must look at the next tournament thinking, do you know what? I ain't going to be making it. I'm going to retire. And I think this could be a scenario where a number of players go, now, for whatever reason, I'm retiring from international football, retiring. And as much as France have been successful, the manager Deschamps has a certain way of playing, and like a lot of managers, he has a certain kind of player that he likes and he trusts. I don't like that. I think you should play your best players, but he's been relatively successful, and I think that there could be a fallout with him and Benzema where he's told him to go and do one. If you're the manager, I'm retiring. Now, if I was James Maddison and Jack Grealish, we've learning that Southgate has got another 2 years. I'm not too sure how old Madders is. I think he's about the same age as Jack. They're going to be 28, 29 type of age in the next Euro tournament. Hardly got a sniff at this one, and you look at Southgate, you know what his 11 is. Them boys might as well retire because Southgate don't like creative players. He's got his way of playing in a negative way.
Well, I've said it before to you that
Mm,
I'd have been looking to see if I've had
yeah,
any other blood in me. It'd be
yeah,
nice to have some Moroccan blood in this World Cup or something like that. Look through your family tree and see if the kid. What amazes me, what I thought the great thing about the World Cup as well, which uh, was when you think that the goalkeeper who won the Golden Glove or whatever it was,
yeah,
he was superb. Plays for Aston Villa.
yeah, in
You
Martinelli.
know, without a doubt, without a shadow of doubt, without Messi, McAllister was the best player for Argentina.
Yeah,
Good player.
yeah,
Played for Brighton and Hove Albion. They're nondescript team. And you wonder. I watched them for about 3 years, and I never knew he was Argentinian.
yeah,
And especially with that name on his back, you think, well, he ain't. But having said that, Manchester United got a Brazilian called Fred,
yeah,
so where do you go there? But yeah, I mean, I think that was great it was great Argentina. There's so many wonderful stories come out of their team.
yeah,
For the goalkeeper playing for Oxford 2 years ago, McAllister, unbeknownst, they had a little clip on TV for 5 minutes beforehand, and the Brighton players were all sending their best wishes over to him. Bring the World Cup home. That's how much he's thought of it, Brighton, and
mm,
and these players, they weren't all English, but some of them were English. They wishing him well and have a great World Cup, and he did have a great World Cup, and I think. My friend who had the bet last night, I said the biggest chance we got is if McAllister plays well tonight, because that allows Messi to push up a little bit
yeah, it
more
does.
and get further forward, because we wanted Messi to score because of the goals, the Golden Boot, and Argentina win it. But that kid, I'd love to have played. I was in the 1970 squad. I'd love to have played in that World Cup. It would have been they're very special occasions. But for that kid to play for, he'll come back next season and play for Brighton. He'll be a complete superstar. A World Cup winner playing for Brighton. My goodness. And we got all these so-called English superstars. You know, You got, Frank Lampard 3 or 4 years ago when he was at Chelsea had Declan Rice at the top of his hit list. He wanted him to pay. They offered £90 million for him.
Mm.
My goodness. So it makes you wonder. Frank would have got the sack a lot earlier than what he actually did if he'd bought him.
But again, Declan Rice, you'd identified it, put him there at centre half. He used to play for Chelsea as a centre half when he was a kid. I think he's a centre half. He ain't good enough to play midfield for me. McAllister, you're right, he's a player. He gets on the ball. He's Argentinian because his dad used to play. I'm sure I read this. His dad used to play for Hibs, and he went on loan to an Argentinian team. And then
There
I
you go.
guess I guess he met a girl over there, then stayed, and they had a baby, and that's
Absolutely.
McAllister. So
A babby.
oh, exactly, but what a stroke of luck for McAllister that his dad went on loan and played in Argentina. He could have gone on loan and played for Colchester, and then he
Yeah,
might. Do you know? It just
yeah.
shows you the path of life you
Not
take
nothing
at
against the
times.
girls in nothing against the girls in Colchester, but you're better off in Argentina, and I bet she's a beauty as well. And I mean, it's just the luck of the draw, fate, and
Yeah,
fate has a incredible hand in all of this. And I was just so delighted for him because he's such a good footballer.
yeah,
Not because he won it, and not because he's playing for an English club. I don't believe in all that rubbish. But he is a quality player, and to play in the Argentinian team, they're not a great Argentinian team to be honest, but they catered superbly well for Messi. They run their legs into the ground for Messi because when they haven't got the ball, they play with 10 men.
yeah.
Lionel walks about because he
Mm.
can't hack it no more. But his touches were immaculate. Everything about his display was immaculate. And, if ever a player deserved to pick up the trophy, it was him.
Absolutely. And we are going to talk about the final in a short while. But before we go on about the game of football, let's give a shout out to them Argentinian fans. They were phenomenal. And I've been doing a lot of sharing on my Facebook page about Argentina. There's a great book Jonathan Wilson's written, Angels with Dirty Faces, and it's the footballing history of Argentina football. I watched a documentary last night on Boca Juniors. I mean, they're as mad as a box of frogs, them
Yeah,
Argentinian supporters. They are so passionate. When we go on about our lot are passionate, these fellas take it to another level, and I think they've been tremendous. We put up that your friend sent you from the LaSalle Stadium, and then you walk through all them corporate areas. I thought it was a five-star hotel. Out
yeah,
onto
yeah,
the
yeah,
balcony, you're seeing them 40,000 Argentinian fans,
yeah,
and yet a
yeah,
lot of them were from Argentina. I thought they were
yeah.
fantastic, Al.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it does help. It really does. If you got the fans behind you, but at the end of the day, it's I don't think they could have won it without that following. Really don't.
Yeah,
I think they lifted them after the first game. They could have easily gone the other way, the fans, and thought, God, what was that all about? Getting beat by a total because it was one of the biggest shocks of all time.
yeah,
Um, but they've lifted that team. The coach has done fantastically well. I mean, why the coach is so brilliant is in the aftermath of it all was Messi's turned round and he's got afterwards and he's gone, I'm not retiring now. I want to play on.
mm,
I just love this group of players. What I've just experienced in the national team, I want more of. And
yeah,
I suppose he's thinking of, well, if I stick here, then the manager's going to say, he'll want to roll in behind the scenes of coaching or not even doing that. Like Bobby Moore should have done with
yeah,
England. He should have kept him on as the ambassador because what he's done for Argentina, like Maradona done, what they've done for Argentinian football is, we talk about our players in this country and the English players, the modern day players, and really, we don't hold a candle to these players.
no, no. I mean, we
It's
don't
sad to
even
it's
get
sad to
close.
say. It's sad to say. I mean, I've was treated badly by the FA and left out, but as were a lot of a few more of the lads. But my case was a little bit different. You know, I got banned for 3 years. I've got a thing against the FA, but when they get a great player come along, I met Glenn Hoddle while I was banned. Glenn Hoddle made his debut against me at Stoke. We've had some wonderful players. I mean, the crazy thing about this is that they were talking about Gascoigne last night. Uh, one of the all-time greats, which he would have been if he hadn't got injured, if he was stupid tackle. But if Gascoigne was around today, he wouldn't have got in the England team.
No, he wouldn't. No. I mean,
Southgate wouldn't have picked Paul Gascoigne. No way. No way. He would have had Declan Rice in front of him.
Oh,
so that is the saddest indictment with English football, that you've got a man that won't pick a Paul Gascoigne when he went into a World Cup in Italy and he took them apart. He won. If he'd have been in the best team, he should have been in the best team and carried off the World Cup on his own. He was that good.
But let's look at that 1990 tournament. It wasn't until we played Czechoslovakia at Wembley, round about St George's Day, 1990. So it was only a few months before we went and flew out to Italy. Gazza wasn't even certain of getting on that plane because Robson didn't like him. England managers do not know how to accommodate flair players and players that can do creative things on the ball, like going back to what you just said about Messi and Maradona. Both of them wouldn't have played for England because they would have said, "No, you ain't. We don't want players like you. We want robots to play our game."
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's only one man that would have done it, and that was Venables.
Absolutely.
Venables would have picked Gascoigne, and he's the only England manager in my lifetime. I know Terry very well. When I went to Chelsea as a kid, and I've known him for 50 odd years. He's the only man that really could have done what he'd done and walked into Barcelona and did what he did there. Only Englishman that could done that. He's full of himself, Terry. He's a East End spiv. We all know that. But as he proved in 1996, he done it with Shearer, and Shearer said the other night, he said, I didn't look like I was going to get a game in the Euro 96. And he pulled me aside. He said, no, I hadn't scored for about 6 games. He said, you're going to be my centre forward in them 6 games. And then he picked people like Sheringham, and Sheringham wouldn't have got a game in the England team today. He'd have wanted someone who's going to run around, because Teddy never sweared, he was that good. But no, I mean, it was such a. If Venables if he hadn't have been in court with Alan Sugar when that Euros were on, and he would have stayed the England manager, I think it would have changed English football. If he'd have got like a 4 or 6 year contract, something, it would have changed English football. But we're not going to changing it for the worse with keeping him on.
Absolutely. But could you imagine if we had a scenario in England where we gave a young Terry Venables in, say, 1982, get a World Cup? You're our football guru, TV. We want you to impose us on the world, and we want you to be the manager that takes our great nation forwards and plays with a style, with an arrogance, with a swagger, with something we've never really seen before, because we missed a trick in the 70s. We ain't going to miss it in the 80s. You're the man. But they're fearful of players and people like that, and that's our problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was circumstances then, but it wasn't really. I don't know how he got in the job. Well, he was very successful in the club management. He's regarded as one of the great coaches. I've seen him when he was at QPR, and when he had Tony Curry there. So he's quite the opposite of Southgate, because we talk about being fearless, and you've got to be fearless in this game. You've got to forget what might happen, forget what might go wrong and say throw him in because he could set the world on light here, and that's all it needs. A lot of managers after the first game would have dropped Messi.
Yeah,
They would have gone. They would have gone. We can't do it. We got to get. We're in trouble now. We got to kick our way out of trouble here. How are we gonna? But they didn't. They didn't because the nation would have erupted, and by believing in that is genius, they actually won it. I was sitting there last night totally thinking all through that first 80 minutes, what's going on here? Because, within a month, they've gone from looking like a pub team and they look like the best team in the world. They get only because they were playing the world champions, and it was just, I was drained last night. I really was watching it. And I've got no. My friend had a very, very decent bet, which it would have come to a nice few quid, but he got out of trouble, so I was kind of relieved. But just watching it, when it all kicked off 10 minutes ago and then Mbappe started, and then he got the second goal, what a goal that was. Then he started to come alive. I mean, they made excuses. You got a virus, all them thick pundits on TV. They're playing like they got a virus. They look leggy and all that. As soon as they scored, it was the other way round.
Yep.
Argentinians looked like they had a virus. I mean, God Almighty, it's just that one stroke of luck they had with the penalty, which obviously could have changed England's fortunes when Harry missed that one. But that was only a defensive error. It wasn't something they had created. And it's I just say I held my head when he gave the penalty away, but not knowing what was to come. What was to come was probably the most dramatic extra time, 10 minutes in extra time of football ever been.
Absolutely, and I've been listening during this World Cup to the commentators. I do try and turn it down, and I do certainly at half time and before the games because they talk such crap. But the first half, I was watching the first half, travelling back from my mum and dad's, and so I was listening to the first. I missed the first 15. In fact, I walked in the door, turned the telly on, and Messi had just put the penalty away. That's as I got in. So I'm sitting down there, glass of wine, watching the game, and I thought, Argentina are playing some fantastic football, but how bad are these French players? And, they were on about this virus, and a virus, I thought they're playing like a zombie nation. And then he made a couple of changes before half time, and I thought, oi, what's going on here? And then second half, they come out, they were a bit better, but even so, Argentina wasn't really under any pressure. In fact, I think when Mbappe took that penalty, I think that was their first shot at goal in the World Cup final. And then the game came along.
They actually had one more that flew over the bar. I think Mbappe smashed one over the bar. We're never going to go in, but that was after about 75 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
So, but you're not far off, Paul.
But yes, I mean they just wasn't in it. And as you say, Al, it does change the game when you score a goal. And Mbappe went on and became the first player to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final where all three of them went over the line. I did say that to one of my pals, a Scottish fella, and he was going on and what have you. And I did say, but all three of them have crossed the line from Mbappe, because he was saying two of them were penalties. But again, what a player. Came alive, didn't do much beforehand. In fact, with the build-up, I was listening to the radio commentary, and they were saying that he'd when all the French players were doing a little bit of footwork, he went off down the tunnel. I thought, I bet he's going to have that ankle sorted out, because there was a bit of speculation with England that he wouldn't play. He had a quiet game, in the semi-final. But after about 80 minutes, boy, that lad come to life. And what a player.
But again, Paul, it was only the penalty, wasn't it? It wasn't any great play. They whacked the ball downfield, and he's made a mistake.
Yeah.
But it's like if he had a bad, even if he did play with a bad ankle
Mm,
and he scored the penalty, the adrenaline rush you get when I can only imagine at a
yeah,
World Cup final will beat any painkiller.
absolutely.
To think that they got a lifeline and they kind of come alive, and Mbappe's second goal was just classic. I mean, what a goal! I mean, they said on television last night he should have took two touches. Are they sure? Shows you
Honestly,
he should have took two touches. He went to the header. He timed his run to perfection. He moved his body in the right to like, as I put this morning, like Jimmy Greaves used to get scissor kicks like that. But he would low down, and it was like ballet, wasn't it?
yeah,
It was. But the power, because he got his hand on it again, the goalkeeper.
yeah.
If he don't hit it with so much power, he saves that.
I was wetting myself listening to the commentary. That was the most stupidest thing I've ever heard ever on English TV. And I was watching it. To be honest, I was watching it on the BBC and I had to turn it. I was watching it on ITV and I had to turn it over. They went down to the girls and they were talking crap. And I
Oh,
thought, oh,
yeah.
I can't listen to. So I turned it over and I was listening, and Lee Dixon was commentating, and Dixon was, I can't believe he never took a touch. I thought, mate, are you having a laugh?
He did say
I
that.
mean,
Yeah, that was it.
when we used to play Germans, I mean, the name we used to give for headers and volleys, we'd play that as kids. The ball would come over. You could only score from an header or a volley. The ball comes over like that. You're going to hit that first time on the volley. So
Yeah,
anybody worth anything in football, and that's why we ain't no good, because we listen to these clowns who coach them. We got a right back here coaching a forward. I want you to take a touch. Oh, forget it, mate. I'm not listening to anything you've got to say, because clearly you haven't got a clue. I mean,
yeah.
Mbappe, what? Just different
Well,
class.
as how many people could actually execute what the whole situation. You can't coach. That's why I say certain people are uncoachable. You can't coach things like that. You can't do things like that that's not from the training ground. That's total genius.
Yeah,
And that's what he is. He played against England. He looked like he was in his day, and he had two kind of games where he was. But you can't expect him. That's why the Brazilian team in 1970 was so
yeah,
fantastic, because when Pele weren't doing it, Jairzinho was doing it. When
yep,
Jairzinho weren't doing it, Rivellino was doing it, and then Gerson was doing it. They had so many fantastic individuals. But whereas with the French, I mean, Griezmann had a very, very off game
yeah, he
last
did.
night, which was right in Argentina's favour. From the word go, he made 3 bricks. And I thought, this is good, because I was Argentina all the way last night. Yeah,
Mm.
but mainly, obviously, because of the bet. But um, that was right in their favour. And I said to my friend before the game, I said, what you need to win this bet is for McAllister to play his best game tonight, and he did. He was absolutely superb. Uh, we haven't got. We got midfield players on the line, on the bench. We got Jack, we got Madison, but they're a different type of player. They do the odd, the odd trick, and they
Yeah.
do something. They can get Nicky a goal, but what they needed last night was McAllister to be involved the whole game, and he was. He was here, there, and everywhere. He was making, and he knew he had to. He knew he had to do that, because he knew, if we're going to win a World Cup, I got to do this, because for Lionel, because he ain't got the legs no more.
But you're right,
I mean, you know,
yeah, McAllister is that kind of all-round complete midfield player, isn't he? He'll come deep, he'll get it off the back four. He wants the ball, he wants to get on the half turn and play. He'll give a nice little 1-2, have it the other side, and then he makes the play. He could play easily in a midfield trio with Jack and with Maddison. Griezmann, I think you're absolutely spot on. He had a tremendous tournament. Whether he won very well or whether he just had an off game, who knows? But again, the press before the World Cup final were blowing smoke up his backside, saying what a great player he is. And I'm thinking, we got a fella like that. His name's Jack Grealish. We don't put him on the pitch. He's very similar to Griezmann. But again, we just don't understand how to play these players. And then at 80 minutes, when the game did come alive and France did turn up to the party with a few bottles, I mean, blimey, it was. But again, you look on the social media and the comments, the greatest one. I've been listening on the radio, greatest World Cup final ever. And I'm doing me a favour. It reminded me it had shades of 79, Man United versus Arsenal, and Man United.
Rub it in, Paul. Rub it
but
in.
They were never in it, were they? United, Arsenal were a canter. Then United got 2 goals, and then the ball's come over, and Alan Sunderland's tucked it away. But again, when something happens like that, late on in the game, and you have extra time, and these commentators wanted extra time banned. Nothing ever happens in extra time, they were saying in some of the earlier rounds. Keep. And I was commenting, I didn't want, at that stage, I didn't want the game to end. I thought it was unjust, really, to go to penalties. Let's play till the next one wins. You know, like you used to do when you were a kid and you'd be over the park. Next one wins, then you'd score. No, okay, next one wins. You just didn't want that game to end because it was end to end.
Well, it was. I think it was more than just football. It was so the outcome was always in jeopardy.
Yeah.
It was dramatic, wasn't it? It was really dramatic. You didn't know what was coming. No one could have called it. No one could have wrote the scripts. And when Messi scored to make it 3-2, he's run over, think he scored the winner, and that weren't a Lionel Messi goal. That was a Messi goal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a Lionel Messi goal. Yeah. He got it over the line. When we all knew it had gone in because it was 2 or 3 yards over, but he ran away. And I thought, thank God for that. My mate's one is better. And all of a sudden, that was on like 88 minutes, was it 98 minutes? I said, no, It was 2 minutes. It was a minute and a half from the end, and he's just won. They were screaming on TV. Lionel Messi just won the World Cup for Argentina, and then you think, well, it can't twist again. There can't be another twist, but there was. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the extra time, the goalkeeper makes that magnificent save.
Yeah, but
to save Argentina.
Absolutely. I mean, that was almost Schmeichel-like, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But like Mbappe, he scores a penalty, he scores a great volley, and then he gets that late second penalty, and they get the commentators, I just don't know where they get them from, and they're going, well, will Mbappe take the second penalty? I'm like, mate, there is not a chance that anybody is going to get that ball off Mbappe. He will back himself because he's a quality class player, and they go, oh, he's arrogant. You need to be as arrogant and confident as what he is when you're playing at that level, doing what he does. And whereas Harry Kane stuck it, I think he was aiming at the moon. I mean, Mbappe, you just knew that fella wasn't going to miss. And then in the penalty shootout, who steps up for the first 2 penalties? Messi, who'd already took a penalty in a game, and Mbappe, who'd already took 2, and they just took them penalties away. Just top players, and just supremely confident swagger.
Well, yeah, that's why they are what they are.
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, as I say, the only thing I can say about last night was if anyone has never seen a football match and watched that last night would have been a little bit misled, because that was a football matches of all football matches. It wasn't the greatest football match because after 80, if the game would have, if you hadn't given the penalty away at 2-0, we'd been very disappointed that the French let themselves down. It was too one-sided. We don't like to see one-sided games, do we?
No, we don't. If that was a rugby match, because they play 80, don't they? 80 minutes are up, bang, 2-0, Argentina win, you go, oh, that was just an average World Cup final, that was, wasn't it? It was all right.
Unbelievable. It was an unbelievable match, but to say it was the greatest is ridiculous.
We now go on to the Euros. We're in a group, so our next game will be in March. We've got a bit of a break. We've got Italy, we've got Malta, we've got Ukraine, and we've got North Macedonia. So that's what's next for Gareth, for Dave the Cat, and the England team. You're right, the Argentinian manager says Messi will just make his own mind up. If he wants to carry on and play in the World Cup, he will do. But again, I'm listening to commentators today, and they're arguing. They're saying Martinez cheated when he threw the ball away, or he was when he was doing them little kind of shimmies when he was on the line. And I'm like, are you lot for real? Do you not remember Bruce Grobbelaar? Was it 1984, the European Cup final? He was the one that started all that messing around on the line, trying to put the forward off, didn't he?
Absolutely. It's all part of the game.
Of course it is, yeah.
It's great. I think for me, it's great entertainment. Because you can either be a hero or a villain. You can,
Yeah.
if it all goes wrong. But that's the way he plays in goal. I mean, I wouldn't want to take a penalty against him. I know he's a big lad.
Yeah.
He's a confident lad, and that is the way. That is what you've got to do. You've got to do anything to stop the player scoring. He ain't doing nothing wrong.
No, not at all.
We changed the rules so much. Where do we go, mate?
You just dropped off. They changed the rules where you're not allowed to, when you're taking it, I'm assuming you're going to say the run-up. You need to run up, but they stop, don't they?
Yeah, it's... what does it matter what you're doing when you go? It's all about when the ball leaves your foot, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then now goalkeepers. I mean, if you're a goalkeeper, I'm sure that if I was a goalkeeper, that's what I'd do. I'd want to try and put them up as much as I can. Especially with a goalkeeper that weren't a penalty, that weren't really a penalty. It made me even worse.
Yeah.
To get a bit of justice out of it. But no, I mean the goalkeeper. I mean, if it hadn't have been the Messi and Mbappe final, the goalkeeper would have walked away with all the trophies last night.
Absolutely. I love what he did with the trophy, by the way. It was superb, wasn't he? I mean, it's a great picture of Martinez with that trophy. And that Iraqi bloke standing behind him thought, what the bleeding hell's he doing with that trophy? It's an Argentine.
And there's a little bit of a hand of God in it as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But again, they come away with pretty much all the trophies. Mbappe got the golden boot. I think he's level with Pele now, all-time goal scorers in the World Cup. Again, phenomenal. And the kid is only 23. Imagine if he was English, you wouldn't hear the last of it, would you? But you do realise Mbappe is only 23. Mbappe, 23-year-old Mbappe. That's all the English press would be writing about. But again, he will go on. He'll learn from that. I've never seen anybody receive a golden boot and be so fed up. But again, it just shows people, when some people go, yeah, but they're quite happy scoring the goals and the team doesn't win, but scoring the goals. He was absolutely gutted, wasn't he? He was almost inconsolable. And that's why he's so great, isn't it, Al?
Well, yeah, it's, the golden boot don't mean nothing if you lose.
No, not at all, no.
But not, you can have a golden boot, said I scored more goals than anyone, but that's not what the game's all about. It's all about winning, It's but winning with style, and he's he's a class player as well, and he plays with it. Plays with it even at the end. He's played with half a smile, even though he was beat. He plays with a smile on his face. He knows how good he is. He says how good he is. But that's not a problem with that. The English people, they can turn around and condemn him and say what they want about him. But I tell you what, if Southgate or we had a manager that would pick someone like that, they would love him in the English team. Christ almighty. But he wouldn't get in the English team because he wouldn't, he wouldn't do what Gareth wants him to do.
Absolutely, but he does, as you say. He's one of the few players these days. I think Messi, he always plays with a smile on his face. And Mbappe plays with a smile on the face. says it all. Mind you, I did half expect Mbappe to go over to Lionel and say, "Do you want to take this trophy back to Buenos Aires with you as well?" Because I don't really want that.
Well, yeah, I don't think he did really
No,
want
I
it.
didn't.
He looked like he wanted to throw it on the floor. It was, but that's the way it is. It's you see the people at the Oscars, they win the Oscar, they
Yeah.
know that don't really matter much, really. There's six of them go up there, and it's all about opinions and everything else. And Mbappe ain't stupid enough to know that he scored two penalties. I don't know whether dubious or
Mm.
that was one of the things in the World Cup I didn't like about the refereeing.
Yeah, it
With
was
the
poor,
penalty
wasn't it?
situation. Oh yeah, it was poor, and it was such a. It makes you wonder about FIFA. You think they got 4 years to. They took a bit of a chance with this having it at Christmas over there. I still don't believe in it. All we need now is to some bright spark to turn around and say, let's have it at Christmas every 4 years, and that will be it. I will never watch it again because it's ridiculous. Especially when it's snowing outside and we're watching them in the sun. You know,
I mean, how do
but
you think Dave the Cat's going to feel out? I mean,
I don't know. He probably got his tail up at the moment, and he.
I mean, he's there in Qatar. It's about 30 degrees plus, and even about 3 o'clock in the morning. He's going to come back to Manchester -7. He's going to be the most unhappiest cat ever. You know, I'm absolutely gutted for the kid. I'm also.
Well, it couldn't have been worse than the cat in Mexico.
And again the sober tents. What a waste of time the sober tents were. And also, I mean, in part one of it or part two of the diary, we were talking about the sexualization, and they were also talking about all these immigrant workers, how many had died, and that. And it was nice as the tournament went on. All these muppets shut up and just concentrate and watch the football, and let's let the football do the talking. And in terms of Messi and Mbappe, they did do all that talking, and even in the final, and give us the last, extra time and the last 10 minutes in normal time to really salivate over.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's one of those. It's one of those matches that you go down the pub every day of the week for a year,
Yeah,
and everyone's got a different take on it. But for me, it was I sat here on my own, poured myself a drink, and I was just, to be perfectly honest, I was absolutely delighted at 2-0, and I thought, yeah, my mate's going to go and pick his money up. And then when they scored, I screamed. Well, I actually screamed when Lionel got the first penalty up because we had him as first goal scorer.
yeah.
And then the second goal went in, I started clapping. You'd have thought there was an audience in here. I was on my own, like Jack Nicholson in the Cuckoo's House. And then all of a sudden, it all went pear-shaped, didn't it? I mean, if
Yeah.
I'd have had 4 or 5 of the lads who feel the way I do about the game in here, it would have been mayhem, you know. But all's well that ends well, and it did end well because they had the best supporters.
Yeah.
They had it was a dream the way they come back from losing that first game. I couldn't, for the life of me, I'd have wanted 100-1 for them to win the
Yeah.
tournament. After that, they looked a team drained, run out of ideas, didn't have a clue. Lionel looked fed up. He, you know, he looked 10 years younger when he walked out yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing how the turnabout, and it's just fantastic, really. It couldn't have turned out better. It was just incredible.
And I don't think people understand really the weight of a nation that was on Messi's shoulders, because there's always been that comparison with Maradona. I've got to say, I do feel sorry for Passarella, because all the pictures you've seen is Messi and Maradona, and Passarella was the first Argentinian to lift the World Cup, and he ain't got a mention from 1978. Never forget the first team that wins your honours. Chelsea do that when they forget about you boys, the FA Cup and the Cup Winners' Cup as well. But
Yeah, I don't really. I think every dog has their day, and I think it's great. I mean, we all like to see great players. You know,
Yeah,
as I said, as we spoke about in the last podcast, you know, why take Madison?
yeah,
Uh, don't give him no time, and he had no. I mean, why take him at all? I mean,
pointless.
that you know, people say, "Oh, it would have been a good." He would probably turn around Southgate and say, "Well, want to just bond him into the team spirit of there." But that to me is that's hogwash. That is, that's no good. That's deflating
But
to
there's no
see him.
point.
Well, to see
There
him
ain't no
feel
point, is there?
when you after hearing pick the team and you've got inferior
Yeah.
players
Yep.
named in front of you, and you think, well, you think you got a better chance of winning this game without me and more chance with him in the side, then I might as well just pack up and go home. You know,
Exactly. And and
it's
and and that's the point, Al, isn't it? You know, the fact is, going forward, Southgate ain't going to change. There's no way he's going to change. You know, you'd like to think that he'll learn, but he won't. He's going to carry on the way it's going. The system ain't going to work for Madison or Jack. And them two boys might as well just retire from international football, because as long as this claims the manager, it don't matter whether they fit in, get on well with the boys, they're having a bit of a lads' holiday. I bet if me and you were talking to Madison, we was in the pub, and he'd say, "Do you know what? I'm absolutely gutted. I'd have rather have stayed at home with me missus and me babby,
yeah,
watched
yeah,
it, had a few beers, because I tell you what, I never felt part of that at all, because I knew I wouldn't even get a kick in anger."
yeah. I mean, the same can be said. I remember watching Graham Souness first one of after the first match. They talking about Foden. And he said, I don't care what anyone says. We've all got our own opinions
Of
and
course we
everything
have.
else. He said this kid is as good as anyone I've ever seen in midfield. He said, if England want to win the World Cup, he's got to be the first name on the sheet. And
Mm,
that's what Saunders said. Now,
yeah,
Graham Saunders knows a little bit more than the man in charge, I'm
yeah, of course
afraid
he
to
does.
say,
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
in my eyes. And
yeah,
he talks a lot of sense, and he was a great, great footballer himself.
yeah.
Um, and yet, Foden wasn't seen after that, you know?
No,
It was
but
just,
again, if he was Spanish or Argentinian, Foden would be playing in the middle of the park. They'd be giving the ball to Foden and saying, "Use it, create something." That's the way we play football. Spain have got Pedri and Gavi. You know, other nations have got ball players in midfield. You know, we haven't. We've got athletes that run around 6'2" and can. A commentator, I forget who it was today, absolutely nailed it. And he didn't mean anything by it. And he was just saying that, you know, England are better without the ball than with the ball. And mate, you're absolutely right. And I think that just sums up our midfield when the same person is saying that's the best midfield we can pick, and then in the next breath say we're better without the ball than with the ball. And I'm thinking, you're all a load of clowns. I have no idea why people would pay you a fortune to be on a radio or a TV coming out with things like that when you're actually saying what intelligent football fans are thinking and saying, but you're not actually meaning what you're saying because you didn't listen to what you said. But what you said is absolutely right. With the ball, we ain't very good. We're better without the ball, and that just about sums up Southgate. So we're looking forward to another 2 years of not having the ball and running after a decent team and trying to get it.
well, you might as well go and watch a
Oh,
cross
you might as
country
well.
team, mightn't
Yeah,
you
you
know?
might.
It's
Yeah.
but I mean, England have done it again, but you know, you got a lot of people who are gonna. I mean, they stopped watching it when England got knocked out, but
Mm,
I found it more exciting when England got knocked out, and I just thought it just couldn't have worked out better. It couldn't have read the script any better. It was all about Mbappe
yeah.
and Messi. Uh, they produced the goods. All right, there was penalties involved, but it ain't their fault. They give the penalties,
Mm,
and at the end of the day, it couldn't have been. I mean, at the beginning of the tournament, there's only one man I wanted to pick up the trophy because he'd never won it, and he's going to shut a lot of
yeah.
people up because the talk, had they not won it, would have been he ain't as good as so and so
Yeah.
because he he never won the World Cup. Well, he has won the World Cup, and because you win the World Cup, it doesn't mean. I mean, Johan Cruyff never won it, and George Best never won it, but
Yeah,
it doesn't make them inferior players to people that did win it. You know, it wasn't George Best. Uh, because he was Northern Irish, he never
mm,
played in a World Cup final. No wonder he went on the booze, and
yeah,
that was part of the problem. Every 4 years, he used to go missing, and he was broken hearted because he couldn't play in a World Cup, all because of his nationality. And I think players from now on, they're doing it already. I know, as I said about McAllister.
mm,
You know, I never knew he was Argentinian, but what a lucky boy, because he
yeah.
wouldn't have got a game in the England team.
Man, not at all. But again, how
You know,
stupid is it?
yeah.
If Messi wins the World Cup, he's going to be called the GOAT. And like, I mean, come on. Whether you win a World Cup or whether you don't, you're still a brilliant player. You can't help not winning a World Cup. Not everybody wins a World Cup. Pelé was fortunate. He had great players around him and he was a great player as well. But he won the World Cup 3 times. Garrincha won it twice. And Mbappe has won it once. He could have won it twice. Messi has now won it once. Maradona won it once. He could have won it twice. They got beat in the 90 final, of course. So, when you're playing in a World Cup final or a World Cup tournament, sometimes it is in the lap of gods, and you're right, sometimes your name's on the trophy, sometimes you're not. But to actually put them up there as the best or the greatest of all time for the only reason that they actually now have won the World Cup, so we call them the greatest of all time, that is absolutely stupid, that is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Just stupid.
without repeating myself, I think
Yeah,
it's. I can only imagine how George felt. When you listen to him when the World Cup starts, and you got all these people screaming and hollering and say this is the biggest stage in the world and the best players in the world, the best teams in the world, and all this. It's a load
it
of
is.
trash, really.
Yeah, it is.
And I can only imagine how George felt every 4 years when I bet he never watched the World Cup, George. He just used to go to Spain and go out with his Miss
Yeah,
World and do what he done, and that was it. He was absolutely choked, all because of his nationality. Uh, Crazy, really, and obviously him as well. Pat Jennings, he did play in the World Cup later on.
yeah, 82, didn't
Uh,
he? 86.
yeah, when he
Mm,
was late on in his years, but um, no, it's there's so much fate involved,
yeah,
refereeing decisions, penalties, and all that. But the outcome all turned out. I think the outcome it could have went terribly wrong, and someone else got there and won it. The only other team that I would have been delighted to see win it was Morocco.
yeah,
I thought they were sensational. I
yeah,
really did from word go, and they got a couple of injuries defensively that hurt them. I think they might have run out a little bit of legs. I don't know because it was might have been a bridge too far. I thought the number four, Arakrat, or what his
yeah.
name is, he was magnificent. I
Mm,
thought, he was a midfield player of the tournament for me.
yeah.
And if he'd have been in one of them teams last night, if he'd have been in the French team, he'd have motivated them. There wouldn't have been a virus with him last night.
Absolutely. And Miss Croatia, she's had a good tournament as well. She's got a number
I
of.
thought she was the best thing I see in the World Cup, actually.
And there was that Argentina bird that said she was going to take a top off as well if they won. I've been looking around social media, but I can't find her. But apparently they're thinking about sticking her in jail.
Well, over there they would, but they'll wait till they get home. They'll all be taking their tops off.
But we wasn't particularly looking forward to it when we done the first part of the diary because of where it is and because of it's Christmas, and it ain't like a World Cup where we've watched the night before and then we go out to work. It's -7 and we're scraping our cars. It's usually nice and light and sunny and down the pub, and it's a different kind of World Cup. I don't think. Well, the next World Cup is in America, Canada, and Mexico in
Mexico, yeah.
4 years' time. But I think that the one after that might go to Saudi Arabia because they do tend to have a lot of money, and money does talk with FIFA. So it wouldn't surprise me if not the next one, but the one after or the one after that is a Winter World Cup because now they've done it. And the money that the Arabs have got, I can see them getting another one, and they're already talking about a 32 team club tournament, aren't they, as well? So
Well, that's great.
FIFA are just looking at, trying to get as many games of football out the players and as many tournaments, because they want more money, and more money gives them more money. And if they do
Well,
get more money, Infantino can buy some decent footwear, Al.
well, I mean, you go back to the FA Cup. I think the FA Cup hasn't been the same since Manchester United pulled
Yep.
out of it when they went over to try and get us. Um,
2006 World Cup, wasn't it?
yeah, it was just, and it kind of tainted the FA Cup, and we do things. The FA, we don't do things. The FA do things. FIFA do. UEFA, even things like making the semi-finals of the FA Cup at Wembley and all that. That kind of ruined the final for many people. FA Cup final wasn't the same after they had the semi-finals at Wembley. It was not it's the elite competition.
Yeah.
And that is a stage. That is a big stage. And when you have the semi-finals there, it's not. It's just not the same. It's just greed. It's absolute greed. And what you're doing is you're putting the supporters second. Them supporters last night have made the tournament.
Yeah.
Argentina supporters last night have made this. If they hadn't have turned up, the Argentina supporters, there had been 50,000 of them through this tournament, it wouldn't have been the same.
I tell you what, Al, if they hadn't have turned up, them Argentinian fans, the grounds would have been bloody empty for this World Cup.
Well, as we know, they gave a lot of tickets away, and
Yeah.
they've conned their way through it.
Yeah.
No matter what they said on TV, that was what we heard before, and that is what happened. And they started making excuses after 2 or 3 games. They said, well, they can't get through the turnstiles. There's people and all this shit. Well, there's nothing else to do out there. Not as if they were stuck in the pub, was it?
No, not at all.
So it's all been a con. When the geezer from FIFA jumps up and he says this has been the best World Cup of all time. I mean, that is just it's not like reality. It's just everything's a PR job on their side of it, and life ain't a PR. And that was what made the game so fantastic last night. It was so far away from being PR.
Yeah.
It was the dramatic life. This really is what happens. When we were kids and we played at school, or you got to a cup final and you went in, and then we nearly won it. Then 2 minutes ago you got back in it, and it was just so exciting. That extra time. I mean, you never knew when he made it free or what was coming next. You thought, well, as you said, one of them said, well, a lot of people said scrap the extra time. Well, extra time was far better than the match itself.
Absolutely. I'd always keep extra time. I'd play more time, I would. I mean, if, the games are going on and it's still a stalemate, I'd start taking a player off from each team after a couple of minutes. And then by the time you finish, you're going to get 5-a-side on a big pitch like that. Someone's going to have a bit of passing moving or a shot and scoring a goal.
Attack. Or have heart attack. They get it. Paramedics on.
Well, Al, it's been an absolute joy and a blast. That's another. We'd done the Euro diary a couple of years ago for our home tournament that we failed. We've done the World Cup diaries, Alan Hudson's World Cup diary, another tournament that England have failed. So I just want to say you're a fucking jinx, mate.
Well, I've got to say, going back to what you said earlier on, when we did the first show, I wasn't all for it, and I'm still against it. I don't think we should have had it at this time of year.
Yep.
I think come the end of the season, the Premier League season, we'd have wished that we had a World Cup to look forward to.
Yeah, we would.
I think it's messed the Premier League up.
Yeah.
It's disrupted everything that's good about our game.
Yep.
We've lost contact and touch with what's going on in the domestic game, and all because of money. And it's still the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely.
And whether the Arabs, if the Arabs want to have a World Cup on their own, let them have it every 2 years at Christmas, but let them do it on their own.
Yeah.
But don't drag us into it. I mean, it's just like what we're talking about with the girls' football.
Yeah.
The girls' football, the Euros. I love seeing the girls win. They were fantastic. They were absolutely incredible. I thought they were. I never I never thought I'd look forward to the girls' football as much as I did the last 2 games. And the
Yeah.
Spanish were great. It was just great entertainment. But they make the bad mistake of coming into our game. And Ian Wright should be ashamed of himself.
Yep.
Because he's gone on to the women's game and commentating on the women's game. Now, he should be ashamed of himself because that's one for them. I mean, does he not want to go home?
No.
I mean, God Almighty, what's he want to go? What do you want to go and commentate on women's football for?
I know.
It's nothing to do with us, is it? You know, they got a different.
Let the women do the women, and they can talk about things. In fact, I was watching Carney and Whelan, and they were doing something for the WSL, and it was great listening to them, and they were talking about games that they played in and the women's game. That's great. That's your game. But I don't want to listen to them players talking about the men's game because they've never played in the men's game. It's a different game. So you women, do your women game and don't tell us about how many fans are inside the ground when clearly there is not. You know, there's 14,000 fans that don't turn up at Wembley, but they tell us it's a full house. I don't like the wokeness of the women's game, and it's almost as though it's there, right, and players like that are just ramming it down our throats. Look, people want to watch it, great, you can watch it, but let's look at your game, our game, never the twain shall meet, and let's enjoy both for what they are, and let's be honest about the games, and let's forget about all this BS and this wokeness because it drives me up the wall, and let's hope that in the next tournament, England aren't the only team kneeling because that just is annoying as well.
Absolutely, mate. Couldn't put it better myself.
Right, so till next time, Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. And we're going to be back to our My Life, My Music for the next podcast. I do want to do a Behind the Lens with you, Al, as well, for our Patreon site, where we talk about pictures of you, and you can tell the stories behind the pictures and if they evoke any songs. So we can do a My Life, My Music with the Behind the Lens. So we'll have a look at that, what we're doing next. But for now, the World Cup diary is finished. We do look forward to America, and we are going to be looking forward to Germany. So we will be focusing on England in future tournaments at a future date. So thanks for your time, mate. And thanks for listening, guys. Cheers, pal.
Well done, Paul.
Lovely. Thanks, Al. Speak soon.
Great show. Well done.
Cheers, pal. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.